Hi, this is John Kramer with this episode of the Book Marketing Success Podcast. And today I want to talk about the two main keys to selling anything: books, products, services, coaching, summits, videos, whatever, courses, whatever you might want to sell. And you'll be surprised, but these two main keys have nothing to do with AI. They don't have anything to do with the special programs, spending a lot of money, uh, you know, outguessing the algorithm on Amazon or somewhere else. It has nothing to do with any of those two things. Any of those things. It has to do with these two key things. One, and the first tip of the two, is you need to build and nurture relationships. Not only with your key customers or potential customers, but also with the top influencers who might be able to share their information, their customers with you, so that you can begin to actually sell things that make a difference to people's lives and to what they're doing with what they want to do with their lives. So the first step is to build and nurture relationships. And, you know, the top person to talk about that over and over again is Seth Godin. And he has this really neat little thing he said at one point. He said, find 10. This, in 2 words, is the secret of the new marketing. Find 10 people who trust you, respect you, need you, listen to you. Those 10 people need what you have to sell or want it. And if they love it, you win. If they love it, they'll each find you 10 more people, or 100 more people, or 1,000, or perhaps just 3. Then you repeat it. If they don't love it, you need a new product, so you start over. If they do love it, your idea spreads, your business grows, not as fast as you want, but faster than you could ever imagine. This approach changes the posture and timing of everything you do because you don't have to find 1,000,000 people. You don't even have to find 1,000 people. You need to find 10 people. Build a community, a tribe online. Seth Godin talks about this all the time. He says the best way to do that is by writing a blog or creating a podcast or hosting a summit, and then interacting with other like-minded bloggers, website editors, e-zine editors, and other book authors writing on your subject. These interactions should drive traffic to your blog or podcast where you can capture the names and emails of potential readers. That way you begin to build a list of readers who become the foundation of your fan club or your tribe. The people who will help you promote your book when it finally comes out, your service, your course, whatever it might be. Size alone doesn't create value. Another guy, one of my favorite people is Guy Kawasaki, and he talks about being an evangelist for Apple and then for Canva. And he says size alone doesn't create value. A wide network gives you access, but access without trust rarely converts into anything meaningful. A deep network gives you trust, context, and continuity. Access opens doors once, while trust keeps them open over time. And that's really what you want to build. You want to build a tribe that knows, loves, and trusts you. Dan Poynter and I were not competitors. He wrote the self-publishing manual. I wrote 1001 Ways to Market Your Books. We each were collaborators with each other. He sold thousands of copies of my book, and I sold thousands of his self-publishing manual. So it was a win-win for both of us. And we really liked each other, and we loved promoting each other. You want to find partners like that will help you to sell what you have to sell. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen sold 20,000 copies of my 1001 Ways to Market Your Books simply by recommending my book to all the authors that asked them, how do we sell more books? Jack and Mark had used my book to help vault their first edition of Chicken Soup for the Soul to the top of the New York Times bestseller list, and they were very happy to send people to me to teach people how to market their books. The other key tip is you need to learn to tell stories that sell. Storytelling is such an incredible talent. It's something that you develop over time, and it allows you to really make a sale. Without stories, you don't really make sales. You don't really build trust in your customers, and you don't really get influencers wanting to go and raise their hand and say, hey, I want to promote your product or service. If you want to sell more books or promote anything else, learn to tell good stories. Stories that move people, stories that share your passion, stories that create excitement, stories that people will pass on to their friends. Because if they pass on your story, they will also pass on your book, your product, your service, your summit, your podcast, etc. Stories are never about abstract ideas, never about abstract audiences. Stories are about real people, people with hearts that break, toast that burns, and lives that always seem somehow incomplete. Your goal, your aim, is to complete, to offer people the completion that they're looking for. This is an author marketing tip. Tell a story. All marketing ultimately is about telling stories. Become a storyteller if you want to sell more copies of your books, products, and services. Here's another great quote from Guy Kawasaki, again, one of my favorite people, along with Seth Godin. Uh, Guy says, facts tell, but stories sell. If you want to change someone's mind, skip the data dump and share a story that resonates emotionally. When I was evangelizing the Macintosh, I didn't talk about specs. I told stories about how the Mac empowered creators to design, write, and innovate in ways they never could before. Stories bypass skepticism. They're not something people argue with. They're something that people feel. Whether you're pitching a product or convincing your boss to greenlight your idea, craft a narrative that makes your audience see themselves in the story. I love this quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, uh, author of The Little Prince. He says, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather the wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. That's what stories are. It's just something that really inspires people to want to go ahead and do the things that you would like them to do in terms of buying your product, reading your book, giving you a review, etc., etc. One example that I wanted to give you is Unity Books. They're the publishing arm of Unity Church in near Kansas City. And I once did a consulting gig with them. And one of the things I was very surprised about is how few books they sold compared to what audience they had, because they had a Daily Word magazine that went to 4 million readers, and another magazine that went to 200,000 readers. And yet they were selling 5 or 10,000 copies of their books. And I'm going, there's something missing here. And so that night when I was consulting with them before I met with them again the next day, I read some of their books and I realized very quickly what the problem was. Their books were all abstract ideas. They were all in the mind. They were all about thoughts, all about ideas, but not about stories, not about people. They didn't tell stories. None of the authors told stories, and you have to tell stories to make something live, and they didn't do that. And so they didn't sell nearly as many books as they should have. They should have had 10 times the number of sales they had if their authors, if their editors had actually held their authors to the standard of writing and telling stories to elucidate and illuminate the abstract ideas that they wanted to convey. I have another client, consulting client, and I had the t- toughest time getting him to know what a benefit is. He keeps wanting to talk about features, features, features. And so he keeps adding more and more stuff to what he's selling, but he never gets around to selling it because he never gets around to identifying the benefits that go along with it. So he's not going to convince anybody to help him market his product because he doesn't know how to tell what the benefit is. And I've been working really hard to do it. And I realized that one of the problems is that he doesn't know how to tell stories. Because stories elucidate the benefits, like Guy Kawasaki did with the Macintosh. He didn't tell people about the features and all the features. And, the first Macintosh, when I saw it, I went, wow, this is incredible. It just was a magical machine. And everybody I showed it to, everybody goes, wow, look what it can do. And they thought about it and they said, this is something I can do. And that's part of what you need to do. You sell the benefits of it. So Guy, in evangelizing the Macintosh, didn't talk about the features. He talked about what it would allow you to do that you couldn't do before. And it did amazing things. Even when it was that little boxy thing, black and white, it still had amazing graphic capabilities that the Windows system didn't have. The MS-DOS computers did not have, and the Mac did. I was listening to a couple of summits last week, and one of the things I realized that was a real problem with a lot of the summit speakers is that they were talking about abstract ideas over and over again rather than telling stories. If they had told more stories, they would have gotten more people excited about what they were doing. Because it's in telling the stories, not giving feature after feature, not saying abstract ideas, but telling stories, getting people to be interested in what they're doing. These summit speakers would have got an incredible number of new customers if they had actually gotten around to telling more stories. And this is a weakness I've noticed in a lot of summit speakers. So if you speak at a summit, make sure that you go into that summit telling stories. Have at least 5 or 10 stories ready to tell that go, excuse me, that go along with what the abstract points are that you want to make. Excuse me. Thank you. There's a great service provider out there. Excuse me. AppSumo. They do. They sell all these special programs, little snippets of programs and things that do wonderful little things. And they'll sell like 5 or 10 different little programs every day. You can get sign up for their emails, and you can get all these things. The thing is, the guy that's doing the video promos and writing the copy, he's again, all he's doing is talking about what it does, what it does, what it does. So he's got all these wonderful programs that do things, and they're wonderful, etc. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't tell, well, how is it going to change your life? How is it going to make your business life easier? He's expecting you to fill in from the features and what it does, what it will do for you, rather than telling you the stories of what it has done for other people. And so what happens? Well, in my case, I bought one of the programs, but there were 10 other programs I might have bought if he had just told me how I could use it to make a difference in my business, rather than selling me on feature after feature after feature. This is the main, I swear he could sell at least 2 to 3 times as many other programs if he learned how to tell stories. You can do the same. If you learn how to tell stories, you'll be able to sell more. One of my friends that I really love, Mike Koenigs, he does an incredible job of selling. He was just doing a special program on AI and AI programs and how they can really make a difference in your life. And what he did is he didn't talk about the features of the AI programs. He told stories. And boy, he just made you want to pick up the phone and give him your credit card and buy his $1,000 program or $2,000 program, etc. Because he told stories. He was telling how AI and what he was teaching about AI was changing people's lives, making their businesses so much more effective and making an incredible difference. And that's something that you can do if you tell stories. And Mike is just a master at it. Uh, he'll tell 3, 4, 5 stories in one short email and maybe talk a little bit about the features, but it's the stories that do the selling for him. This is something you really have to understand. You have to learn how to tell stories. You have to learn that it's what people will pass on to their friends. When you go out to speak uh, somewhere, what people remember from your talk are the stories you tell. And they use the stories. And with the stories that they remember, they'll remember the main point you were making, the main action you were recommending they take by telling the story. And this is something that all speakers learn at some point or another if they're going to be successful and if they're going to earn the $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 paychecks for their 1 hour or 2 hour talk. Telling stories, it really makes a world of difference. The better you are at telling stories, the more effective you will be in selling anything. And that's what I want to teach you now is would like to encourage you to buy my Telling Stories program. It's not cheap, but in it, I'm going to be teaching you 30 different ways to invent your own stories, to develop your own stories in your life, in the life of others, in what you do, in all the content you have, in the content that you come across on the internet, etc., etc. I'll teach you 30 different sources of stories that you can use. and I'll give you examples of every one of them. And you'll be welcome to steal my stories that I will tell in those episodes, because I really believe in telling stories as a tool for selling what it is you have to sell. My Telling Stories program is a $495 program, but it's well worth it. You will triple your sales easily simply by being able to tell stories, being ready and able to tell stories when you go on podcasts to promote your book, your service, your course, etc. When you go onto summits and you speak there and you learn that by telling stories you can do so much more in terms of having that impact. And again, the one thing that people always take away from any speech, from any podcast episode, from any summit episode is the stories that the people tell. Because that's easy to remember. The abstract points people forget all the time, but they don't forget the stories. And I really encourage you to go to bookmarketing.mysamcart.com/telling stories to find out more about my program. Read about it and then decide for yourself if this is something that will be worth it for you to help you to double, triple your sales, even multiply by 10 times or more. That's the power of stories. Thanks for listening.